As you all know, I made a request today for what we were calling a gag order, and I'm not going to walk out of court and do anything other than live up to that.
I came here today just to tell the truth, so hopefully we can get down to the bottom of this. I'm 100%, the charges against me are 100% false, and hopefully due to time, we'll start to see that.
All right, let's dive into the juicy details swirling around some of the biggest names in entertainment right now. We're talking Steve Harvey, yes, the king of comedy and daytime TV, and Sean Diddy Combs, the music mogul whose empire has recently been shaken by an avalanche of legal troubles. But wait, the story gets even more twisted when you throw in rumors of blackmail, hidden secrets, and a prison visit that's got everyone talking. You won't believe what insiders are saying about this one. It's a story that's got betrayal, family drama, and power plays written all over it. So buckle up, because we're about to unpack something that could blow the lid off Hollywood's best-kept secrets.
Does he have a shot? I think his attorneys raised some good arguments.
I think they raised good arguments as well. Maybe this will be third time's the charm, because the difference between this bail motion and the prior two is that this one really does get to the heart of what the court was concerned about, which was witness intimidation.
Now, we all know Diddy's been in hot water recently. His arrest in September 2024 sent shockwaves through the industry. The charges, let's just say they were heavy, involving some serious accusations that have been brewing for years. But what's got everyone buzzing now isn't just Diddy's legal battles. It's the surprising role that one of his closest friends, Steve Harvey, is rumored to be playing in all of this. According to whispers trickling out of some very reliable sources, Steve may have paid Diddy a little visit while he was behind bars. And trust us, it wasn't just a friendly check-in to see how the Bad Boy Records founder was holding up. Oh no, this was more of a deal with the devil kind of visit.
Yeah, that's trying a criminal case in the modern times. A lot of evidence is on electronic devices, cell phone, tablets, computers, things of that nature. And the devices, especially if you have like external hard drives, 90-something terabytes of data on a single device makes me think it's some type of hard drive. That takes weeks to go through just for one device on its own.
Let's rewind for a second. Steve Harvey and Diddy have been connected for years. Diddy's been in the game for so long that he's rubbed shoulders with just about everyone in the industry. And Steve, being the powerhouse that he is, was no exception. They've been seen at the same parties, mingled with the same A-listers, and shared the spotlight more times than we can count. But what if Steve's presence at those glitzy events wasn't just about enjoying the champagne and the photo ops? What if Steve had another agenda the whole time? Rumor has it, Steve may have been collecting dirt on Diddy for years, and now that Diddy's empire is crumbling, Steve's ready to cash in on all those secrets.
Hey, real quickly, all that commissary stuff, he's not getting any of that because people in the shoe have an abbreviated list. So he's out of luck. No stake for him. Yeah, he is on watch. This guy thought he would have went home. All of a sudden, he didn't get bond. Remember, the first night that he was there, he was like an overnight guest.
Picture this. Diddy, sitting in a cold, sterile prison meeting room, fidgeting in his chair, waiting for Steve to walk in. He probably wasn't expecting much. Maybe a pep talk or some words of encouragement. After all, Steve's built up this reputation as a wise, fatherly figure, always dishing out life lessons on his talk show and in his talk show and in his books. But what Diddy got instead was something much darker. According to insiders, Steve laid it all out on the table. He told Diddy, in no uncertain terms, that he had enough dirt on him to bury him even deeper than the charges already would. And unless Diddy kept his mouth shut about certain things that could implicate Steve or his family, Steve was ready to hand it all over to the FBI.
It's pretty interesting because I think, we have seen many photos, videos of Sean Combs, aka Diddy, through the Associated Press, through Instagram. And so to see him kind of in person after being in jail for 3 weeks now was pretty interesting, to say the least. And I say that by being that you would expect him to feel a little defeated, a little gaunt, anything like that. But it wasn't that case. He appeared confident. He stood tall. But
now, why would Steve Harvey, of all people, find himself tangled up in this mess? The answer might lie in the very parties Diddy's been throwing for decades. You see, Diddy's legendary for hosting the kind of events that Hollywood insiders whisper about but never openly discuss. There's always been speculation about what really goes down at these gatherings, and it's not the kind of thing you'd expect from someone who's built a career as an entrepreneur and philanthropist with a squeaky clean public image. Steve attended more than a few of these events, and while most people assumed he was just there to network or let loose, it turns out there might have been more going on behind the scenes. Steve was allegedly keeping tabs on everything, whether it was who showed up, what deals were being made, or what questionable activities were taking place. And now, with Diddy facing the legal fight of his life, Steve has the upper hand.
Some people do think that Diddy can help him, but this guy's going to be locked up forever.
But let's not forget, Steve Harvey is a man with a reputation to protect. He's the face of family-friendly entertainment, a trusted figure in daytime TV, and a best-selling author who's made a fortune giving advice on relationships and success. The last thing he needs is to be dragged down by Diddy's sinking ship. That's where the ultimatum comes in. Steve reportedly told Diddy to keep quiet about anything that could tarnish his own image, particularly involving his family, or he'd make sure Diddy's situation got a whole lot worse. And Diddy, knowing full well what Steve's capable of, might just have to play along.
In her civil lawsuit, Cassie said that she was the victim of abuse, assault, and rape at the hands of Diddy.
Now, let's talk about the family element because this is where things get even murkier. We can't discuss Steve Harvey without mentioning his daughter, Lori Harvey. Lori's been making headlines for a while now, mostly for her high-profile relationships with some of the most famous men in Hollywood. But what a lot of people don't realize is that Lori's ties to Diddy may have put her directly in the line of fire. Remember when she was spotted cozying up with Diddy back in 2019? At the time, it seemed like just another celebrity romance, but now, in light of these new revelations, it's starting to look a lot more calculated than anyone ever imagined.
Diddy would be throwing all his celebrity mates under the bus.
I mean, that could potentially be coming when it's time for court and when it's time for him to testify. But what we're seeing right now is how important public relations really are to Sean Combs. He's desperately trying to control the narrative behind bars, allowing his attorneys to do
According to insider reports, Steve may have knowingly pushed Lori into Diddy's circle, not just for the clout or the headlines, but as part of a bigger plan. Think about it. If Steve was already gathering dirt on Diddy, what better way to get closer to him than through his daughter? Lori, with her model good looks and rising star status, would have been the perfect bait. And if she got caught up in Diddy's world in the process, well, that was just collateral damage. It's a theory that's gaining traction among those in the know, and if it turns out to be true, it could completely change the way we see Steve Harvey. But Lori's involvement in the saga doesn't stop there. There are rumors swirling that she may have witnessed more than a few things at Diddy's infamous parties that could come back to haunt her. And while Steve is busy making sure Diddy keeps quiet about anything that could damage his own reputation, he's also reportedly trying to protect Lori from getting dragged into the mess. After all, the last thing Steve wants is for his daughter's name to be linked to Diddy's legal troubles. But can he really keep her out of it? Or is Lori already too deep in this tangled web of secrets and lies?
Most importantly and most notably, when he walked inside the courtroom, the first thing that he looked at was his family. As soon as he saw his family, he just lit up. Another thing to note, too, is he wasn't shackled, but he was wearing a khaki prison-like jumpsuit when he appeared inside court, and his family appeared on their end very just happy to see him. Now, I will say, when I was inside the courtroom...
Speaking of family, we can't forget about Steve's wife, Marjorie. She's been by his side for years, and together, they've built a public image of the perfect power couple. But behind the scenes, Marjorie's past has always raised a few eyebrows. There have been whispers about her connections to some shady characters, including her previous relationships with men who were involved in less than legal activities. Could it be that Steve's playing defense not just for himself, but for his wife as well? It's a possibility that's hard to ignore, especially given how fiercely protective Steve has always been of his family.
Let's first say that you shouldn't feel guilty for anything.
In fact, some sources are now suggesting that Marjorie's past may be more intertwined with Diddy's world than anyone realized. It's no secret that Marjorie's ex-husband had ties to some questionable business dealings, and while she's managed to keep that part of her life out of the spotlight for the most part, it's starting to look like those old connections might be resurfacing. If Diddy knows something about Marjorie that could damage her or Steve's reputation, it would explain why Steve's so desperate to keep him quiet. After all, in Hollywood, secrets have a way of coming out at the worst possible times, and Steve's worked too hard to let his entire empire crumble because of something or someone he can't control.
What his team is trying to do is get the public to assume that the government is leaking some of this negative information about him, like that Cassie video. But the reality is, he's got a lot of enemies, and I really don't believe it's the government.
As this whole saga continues to unfold, one thing's becoming clear. Steve Harvey is playing a dangerous game. He's walking a fine line between protecting his family and getting caught up in Diddy's legal nightmare. And with so many moving pieces, Lori, Marjorie, Diddy, and the feds, it's anyone's guess how this will all play out. What we do know is that Steve's not going down without a fight. He's built an empire on his ability to navigate Hollywood's treacherous waters, but this might just be the biggest test of his career.
Not done, and that Combs did not do this alone. Do you foresee that there could be other charges related to this case?
I'm not taking anything off the table.
And that brings us back to Diddy. What does he do now? Does he play along with Steve's demands, keeping quiet in the hopes that his silence will buy him some kind of leniency in court? Or does he decide to take Steve down with him, exposing whatever secrets he's been holding on to for years? It's a game of high-stakes chess, and right now, both men are holding their cards close to the chest. But one thing's for sure, the longer this drags on, the more dangerous it becomes for everyone involved.
It's a question of that, but when you read through the indictment, it's pretty clear who could be indicted as a co-conspirator. Right now, there are people in the indictment who would be considered unnamed co-conspirators, but clearly have played a role in this conspiracy. And I think prosecutors have some big leverage on them because they're hoping that they testify against Diddy as prosecution witnesses.
As the rumors continue to swirl, more and more people are starting to wonder just how deep Steve Harvey's involvement in all of this really goes. Was he just an innocent bystander who got caught up in Diddy's downfall by association? Or has he been pulling the strings behind the scenes this whole time, waiting for the right moment to make his move? It's a question that's on everyone's mind, and the answer could change everything we thought we knew about one of Hollywood's most beloved figures.
Realm, this is very significant just from who we associate Diddy being and everything we've seen him do over the decades. Like you said, this is quite the downfall to go from, I mean, we saw the mansions back in March that were raided by the feds. So to go from living in those mansions to being in a jail cell right now, I think it really underscores the magnitude of what he's facing and the weight of the federal government.
And that's where we leave things for now, with more questions than answers. But trust us, this story is far from over. There are still so many layers to peel back, so many secrets yet to be uncovered. And as we move into the next phase of this unfolding drama, it's only going to get more intense. The stakes are higher than ever, and the players are all in.
I think it's to be expected, just the shock of this and the questions about what is ahead of us. I mean, how long is he going to be in custody? Is this an R. Kelly situation? Is he going to not get out for a number of years? Is he going to end up serving a long-term prison sentence from this? Or does he have a chance of beating these charges at a trial that could come?
As the situation continues to unravel, it's becoming clear that Steve Harvey might not be the only one who's feeling the heat. You see, Diddy arrest didn't just put him under the microscope. It shined a light on the entire network of people who've been orbiting him for years. We're talking about an extensive list of high-profile names, insiders, and yes, even some of Diddy's closest friends and business partners. People who've been part of his inner circle for decades are now quietly distancing themselves, trying to avoid being caught up in the fallout. But here's the thing, it might already be too late for some of them.
But there's also strategic reasons for the prosecutors to want him to have co-defendants, because right now he hasn't waived his right to a speedy trial, which would force prosecutors to take him to trial pretty quick, which they actually might not be ready to do. But if they supersede him and have co-defendants with him, it makes it a lot easier to pursue a trial continuance without him waiving his speedy trial right.
The rumors surrounding Diddy's so-called parties have always been a point of fascination in Hollywood. Everyone knew about the glitz and glamour on the surface, but behind the scenes, there were whispers about what really went down at these ultra-exclusive gatherings. And now, with Diddy facing serious charges, those whispers are turning into loud accusations. For years, it was all fun and games. Celebrities flocked to these events, eager to be part of the scene. But now it's a different story. Some of those same people who were once regular attendees are scrambling to cover their tracks.
I'm not going to talk about anything that I haven't said in court or in the papers. These are all great questions, but I'm just not going to get into it. So
can you speak about your concerns about the leak and the video? You've not spoken about that before.
I did it in the court papers, and I'm just going to stick to the court papers. As you guys all know, let me just finish. As you all know, I made a request today for what we were calling a gag order, and I'm not going to walk out of court and do anything other than...
According to sources, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of individuals who were involved in Diddy's inner workings, whether through his record label, his business ventures, or even just as casual acquaintances. These people are allegedly terrified right now, worried that their names might pop up in the ongoing investigation. And let's not forget, Diddy's not exactly the type to go down quietly. If he's going down, you better believe he's not going alone. There are already rumblings that Diddy's legal team is preparing to strike deals, which could mean spilling the tea on some of his former associates in exchange for a lighter sentence. And that's where things get really interesting. You see, Diddy's empire isn't just built on his music or his business ventures. It's built on relationships for years. He's been able to leverage these relationships to stay on top, but now those same connections might be his undoing. People who once considered themselves untouchable are starting to sweat, wondering if their names are about to be dragged into the spotlight. And as more details come out, it's becoming clear that this scandal could implicate some of the biggest names in entertainment, politics, and beyond.
A US judge has ruled that the rapper and producer Sean Diddy Combs will stand trial on federal sex trafficking and racketeering charges in May. He'll be held in prison until then. Sean Combs has pleaded not guilty to charges that he used his business empire to transport women and male workers across state lines to take part in recorded performances. If convicted, he could face a life sentence. David Willis reports.
Let's take a closer look at some of the key players who are reportedly on edge right now. First up, there's Rodney Lil Rod Jones, a name that's been making headlines ever since he filed a lawsuit against Diddy earlier this year. Jones, who worked as a producer and videographer for Diddy, claims that he was not only mistreated, but also witnessed all kinds of shady behavior while working for the music mogul. According to Jones, Diddy's parties were more than just social gatherings. They were elaborate setups where high-profile guests engaged in activities that they probably wouldn't want the public to know about.
We are not done. This investigation is ongoing, and I encourage anyone with information about this case to come forward and to do it quickly.
One of the most explosive allegations in Jones's lawsuit is that Diddy had hidden cameras all over his properties, recording everything that happened during these events. Now, if you're sitting there thinking that can't possibly be true, well, you're not alone. But Jones claims he saw it with his own eyes. He says Diddy would stash hidden cameras in every room of his homes, capturing footage of celebrities, athletes, and music executives. And here's the kicker. None of these people knew they were being recorded. If these tapes exist, and that's a big if, it could mean big trouble for anyone who attended those infamous parties. So, who are these high-profile names that might be sweating bullets right now? Well, the list is long, but one name that keeps coming up is Cuba Gooding Jr. According to Jones's lawsuit, Cuba was one of the people who got pulled into Diddy's web. Jones alleges that Diddy introduced him to Cuba at one of his parties and that things quickly took a dark turn. The actor has already faced his own legal battles in recent years, so this latest accusation couldn't come at a worse time for him. And if more names start getting added to the list, it's only going to make things messier.
Those individuals allegedly included high-ranking supervisors in the business, personal assistants, security staff, and household staff.
But Cuba isn't the only celebrity who's reportedly connected to Diddy's empire. There are also rumors that some of the most powerful figures in Hollywood and beyond could be involved. In fact, Jones's lawsuit even mentions a British royal, which has sent the gossip mill into overdrive. While the royal family has stayed quiet on the matter so far, the mere mention of a royal name in connection with Diddy's legal troubles has been enough to get people talking. And then there's Young Miami, the City Girls rapper, who was romantically linked to Diddy not too long ago. According to the rumors, she played a more significant role in Diddy's life than most people realize. Some reports suggest that she was involved in helping Diddy with some of his more questionable activities, including allegedly transporting items across state lines. While her team has denied any involvement, the rumors have only continued to swirl, putting her in a precarious position.
And I understand that he has a shrink coming by his cell to see him several times a day. And now there's talk about putting him in, it's like a bubble. It's like a cell that has like a plexiglass wall in it where they have inmates watching you. That's actually their job, to keep an eye on the inmates that are on side watch.
As if that weren't enough, Jones's lawsuit also mentions two other women, Daphne Joy and Jade, who were allegedly part of Diddy's inner circle. Both women are said to have been on Diddy's payroll, receiving monthly stipends in exchange for their loyalty. And while it's unclear what exactly their roles were, their names being mentioned in connection with Diddy's current legal troubles certainly isn't doing them any favors. Now, you might be wondering how all of this ties back to Steve Harvey. Well, remember how we talked about Steve's visit to Diddy in prison and the alleged ultimatum he gave him? It turns out Steve might not be the only one trying to cut a deal. If Diddy's legal team is indeed working on striking deals with prosecutors, there's a very real possibility that Steve's name could come up. After all, if Diddy's looking to save himself, he's going to need to give up some valuable information. And what could be more valuable than dirt on one of the most beloved figures in entertainment? And here's where things get even more complicated. It's not just about Steve's personal reputation anymore. It's about his entire brand. Steve has built an empire on his image as a family man and a trusted voice in the entertainment industry. If any of these allegations stick, it could bring his whole house of cards crashing down. And that's not just a problem for Steve. It's a problem for everyone who's ever done business with him.
Well, you got to do your due diligence, and his team should have did the due diligence. And a lot of times people do slip through the cracks. There's things that you don't see and don't find out until later on. But I mean, when people are making claims like the way people are making claims, you have to do your due diligence to make sure that if you're having that person on your platform, which is a huge platform, that you're putting out the proper and correct news.
Well, the problem is
There's already speculation that some of Steve's business partners are starting to distance themselves, just in case things go south. Whether it's his talk show, his radio show, or his various endorsement deals, Steve has a lot to lose if he gets caught up in this mess. And while he's managed to stay out of the fray so far, there's no telling how long that will last if Diddy starts naming names. But it's not just about the potential legal fallout. Steve also has to think about his family, particularly his daughter Lori. As we mentioned earlier, Lori's been linked to Diddy in the past, and while she's tried to move on from that chapter of her life, it's not something she can easily shake. The last thing Steve wants is for Lori to get pulled back into this scandal, especially given how much attention she's already received from the media. But if Diddy's team decides to use Lori's past relationship with him as leverage, it could spell trouble for both her and Steve.
So he said, man, that's tax evasion. You can go to prison.
And let's not forget about Marjorie, Steve's wife. Her own past has been the subject of gossip for years, with rumors about her connections to certain individuals who may have been involved in less than savory activities. While Marjorie has managed to keep most of that out of the public eye, there's no guarantee that it won't come up if this scandal continues to escalate. If Diddy or his team decide to drag Marjorie into the spotlight, it could open up a whole new can of worms for the Harvey family.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So I love my man, but what you mean, but?
So, where does that leave us? Well, as the investigation into Diddy's activities continues, more and more people are going to find themselves under scrutiny. And with Diddy potentially striking deals to save his own skin, it's only a matter of time before we start hearing more names. Whether Steve Harvey's name will be one of them remains to be seen, but one thing's for sure. This is far from over. And here's the kicker. This scandal is bigger than just Diddy or Steve Harvey. It's about the entire entertainment industry and how power, fame, and influence can shield people from the consequences of their actions for years. But now, with everything coming to light, those shields are starting to crack. The question is, who will go down with the ship, and who will manage to escape unscathed?
Now, to the latest on the arrest of Sean Diddy Combs. This one has so many people talking. The disgraced music mogul facing federal racketeering, conspiracy, and trafficking charges. Both the prosecution and defense teams are set to discuss the next phase of action following the indictment, as investigators work to determine potential co-conspirators.
It's a game of chess, with each player trying to outmaneuver the other. Steve has made his move by allegedly giving Diddy that ultimatum in prison, but Diddy's next move is anyone's guess. Will he stay silent, honoring whatever agreement he and Steve might have made, or will he decide that taking down some of his former allies is his only shot at survival? It's a dangerous game, and the stakes couldn't be higher. As the story continues to unfold, all eyes are on Diddy and Steve, waiting to see who will blink first. And while we don't have all the answers yet, one thing is certain: the fallout from this scandal is going to be massive. Whether it's Diddy, Steve, or someone else entirely, someone's going to pay the price for years of secrets, lies, and cover-ups. The only question is, who will it be? Leave your thoughts in the comments below and tell us, do you believe there's a hidden network of control within Hollywood? Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more revelations, because this story is just heating up.